boring about today too.
It's just like every other day. We just get to visit with you. So you're going to Costa.
Okay.
Tara Rivers does quite a bit of work for us. We work for Aqua. They're one of the work for us. So Gary Miller and I got invited to attend. Neither one of us is going to so gas. I don't know if you know the clinical story. Or Ali.
I think I know it.
They're both
Yeah.
on the speaking circuit.
Yeah,
right?
choose?
What?
Like to be a little controlling.
Yeah, I do know that.
Another option. It's like another option we could do is upon approval. You could, how does approve? We have these cards. We'll make sure you get them.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do that. Okay. Then you'll look good.
And then you'll get the list of in-person representatives, so I'll tell you which items these people are supposed to be here, and they might be in person, and they might be able to get information. And they did come to, the meeting, one came in, this gentleman came in person, and these people were on Zoom. I'm thinking they probably have.
Oh, I got a new neighbor.
Yes, you do. We're an older man.
A different neighbor. Yes.
I saw the email. I'll make sure we get it out.
Perfect. We're gonna try to show up Friday, so appreciate all your help. Thank you.
Throw caution to the wind. But is she saying?
That's the case, this is not a good place to start.
We have 2 minutes.
I was thinking of you the other day. I know. Likewise. It's been a while since we've seen each other. As long as catching up or some meme or whatever. If I just walk around and say, I jacked up today. Like, have you ever heard that before? It was so funny. So I did over Christmas. I was on a cruise in the Caribbean. Then I came back, worked for a week and a half, and then I went on a cruise too. So it was like 2 families. It was like Puerto Vallarta.
Okay, so the West Coast.
Yeah, the West Coast. And then the Caribbean one we did. I know, like,
We have 1 minute.
yeah, it's in like Cozumel, Belize, and Honduras. Stayed off the really on an island. Like, and you can do like the best snorkeling or the diving. Yeah.
And I show 9:30.
Okay, good morning.
Good
I would like
morning.
to call the meeting of the board for January 22nd to order at 9:30. And Tammy, may we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Director Gardner. Director Torres.
Present.
Director Denstedt.
Good morning, I'm present.
Good morning. Director Risby.
Good morning, I'm here.
President Roten.
I am also here. Good morning.
Good morning. President Roten, you do have a quorum today.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to invite Jane Hansen up to lead us in the pledge. And can you just introduce yourself just briefly before we all do that?
Good morning, directors. My name's Jane Hansen, and I'm an administrative assistant for Western Operations. And I am also the WICRA board secretary. And I have had the honor of working for Western since 2012. And With that, I invite
Thank
you to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all.
Thank you very much. I love to hear not only what area of Western where folks work, but how long they've been here. And we have such a range of that, so thank you. And now we'll move on to item 4, which is public comments. Ms. Ford, do we have any public comments today?
President Roten, I have no request to speak, and no members in the audience have requested to speak. However, we did receive one public comment in writing last week. That comment is on the dais for each of the board members with some information attached to it. If members of the public wish to see that comment, they are welcome to contact Board Secretary at wmwd.com, and I'll be happy to share it.
Okay,
And that comment will be made part of the board meeting record.
great. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the consent calendar, which can, oh, wait, I didn't even get to say my thing yet.
Sorry.
Which contain, oh, wow, okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, which is approving the minutes of the January 8th regular board meeting.
May I ask who seconded?
Director Gardner.
Thank you.
We-
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
okay, thank you. And Mr. Miller, are there any items to be added to the agenda?
There's nothing to add today.
Okay, and we'll move into our action agenda. Item 7A, approve a budget increase and award a construction contract for the Well 7 equipping project. And Mr. Miller, did you want to introduce that?
I will, thank you, President Roten. So the first two items are both regarding Well 7. Sonia Huff is here to present the item. They both went to the EOWR committee, so committee members and the board members that were there have heard this before. But Sonia will give us an update and give us the details of 7A first.
Okay, great. Good morning, directors and members of the board. Today I'm presenting staff's recommendation regarding the Well 7 equipping project. The Well 7 equipment project is a critical step in Western's strategy to enhance water supply reliability from local groundwater in the Riverside Basin. Once operational, Well 7 is expected to deliver up to 2,000 acre-feet annually of non-potable water, meeting approximately 50% of Western's current non-potable demand. Pump equipping for this project involves installing the pump, motor, electrical systems, piping, and structural components necessary to make the well fully operational. This includes ensuring the well can reliably deliver water to the distribution system while meeting performance standards. Staff recommends increasing the project budget by $1.6 million, bringing the total project budget to $5.1 million, funded from the System Improvement Reserve of the Riverside Non-Potable Water Fund 21. The recommendation involves addressing the bids received for the construction contract as follows. After a competitive bid process, Venture Construction Management emerged as the apparent low bidder with a bid of $918,800. However, upon a detailed review, their bid was deemed non-responsive due to several deficiencies. These included failing to specify required manufacturers for equipment, not listing projects of similar scope completed in the last 5 years, and submitted an unbalanced bid as outlined in the instructions to bidders. On December 4th, 2024, staff formally notified Venture of the bid's non-responsive status, supported by a detailed letter explaining these issues. The determination was reviewed and confirmed by legal counsel. So with Venture's bid disqualified, staff evaluated the next low bidder, who was Canyon Springs Enterprises, which submitted a bid of $998,500. Canyon's bid was found to be fully compliant and responsive and responsible low bidder. Staff recommends awarding the construction contract to Canyon Springs Enterprises, recognizing their technical competence and alignment with the project objectives. Pre-purchase long lead equipment previously approved by the board remains on schedule for delivery, ensuring that the project meets SARCUP grant deadlines. Staff has also accounted for the contingencies and additional support to ensure successful project execution. On Zoom today is Tom Upena, who's the president of Canyon Springs Enterprises, for any questions. And I thank you for your consideration and happy to address any questions you may have.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
No questions, but I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, you guys are like way ahead of me. First, I would like to see if there were any public comments on this item.
We have none.
Okay. And I would like to see if Mr. Upena would like to say anything. I know you mentioned he's on Zoom.
I am. Thank you to everyone there and everyone on the board. Just Canyon Springs is looking forward to getting this project started.
Great. Thank you for being at our meeting today. I had one, not really a question, just something very positive that I noted in the staff report, and that is when, I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, that when this project is finished, it's actually going to be almost completely funded by grant funding. Is that, did I read that correctly?
Yes, correct. So $7.1 million of the SARCUP funding is allocated towards this project, and we anticipate that all 100% of eligible expenses will be covered.
Okay, awesome. I just want to make sure that the public knew that, because you start bantering
There will be more
about.
conversation during the grants presentation later today as well.
Oh, okay, great. We start bantering around millions of dollars and, gets a little overwhelming, so,
And we
okay.
plan on having the project be on time and on budget, right?
Yes.
We do.
Is ahead of schedule and under budget okay?
No, that's good too. I'm all for that. So I know our folks are listening online and getting ready to get awarded this project. So I'm hoping that that's their sentiment.
Okay, so we had the motion, right, and the second?
That is correct.
Okay, I'd like to call for the vote, please.
Thank you. Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Risby.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7B.
Don't go anywhere, Sonia.
I was just going to say, Ms. Miller, do you want to say anything?
So that was the well equipping in 7A, and 7B is the pipeline construction. So Sonia, could you provide the details for the board, please?
Yes. So as Craig said, I'm also presenting staff's recommendation for the Well 7 Discharge Pipeline Project, which is W296C, essential to connect the newly equipped well to Western's non-potable water distribution system. And as mentioned before, the infrastructure will allow Well 7 to deliver anticipated 2,000 acre-feet of non-potable water annually. So staff recommends increasing the project budget that we just approved by $2 million, bringing the total budget to $7.1 million, with funding sourced from next year's capital improvement budget. The recommendation also includes the following contract awards. So for the pipeline portion of the project, the lowest responsive and responsible bid for the construction was submitted by Kirtley Construction Incorporated, doing business as TK Construction, at $1,189,410. The bid was carefully reviewed and validated by the design engineer and staff, and TK Construction demonstrated compliance with all technical and procedural requirements, as well as a clear understanding of project needs. Staff recommends awarding the construction contract to TK Construction, recognizing their capability to deliver the project on time and within budget. For construction management and inspection services, staff conducted a thorough evaluation of 7 proposals, and based on the criteria, including project understanding, approach, technical expertise, and cost, Lee and Rowe was ranked the highest, and their $459,901 fee was negotiated as reasonable. Staff recommends awarding the professional services contract to Lee and Rowe to ensure this effective oversight and quality assurance throughout the construction of the well equipping and pipeline projects. This discharge pipeline project is critical to integrating the Well 7 into Western's infrastructure, ensuring operational readiness and compliance with SARCUP grant requirements. Together, these projects represent a strategic investment in local water supply reliability, leveraging grant funding to strengthen Western's capacity to meet future demands while ensuring accountability and efficiency in the use of resources. Also on Zoom today is Rick Luskow, who's the construction management for Lee and Rowe. Also, Maji, he's the construction manager for Lee and Rowe as well as David King, who's the vice president of TK Construction. So thank you again for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know if you want to call.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just sorry. I'm looking at the map that's on the screen, and it's different from the map that's on, but titled the same. That's in our package. I just want to clarify which one's the correct.
So this map right now on the screen shows the pipeline,
Right.
and then the previous map shows where the well site is. Is that the map you were referring to?
I have two maps. One is B, one is C, and they're identical maps.
I think
I don't know if,
B shows the location of the well. I don't have it up right now. The well site located on Magnolia.
I don't have that map either.
This one?
No.
You have this one, right?
That's the one I have.
Yeah, this one is in the packet, it's right here.
Yeah. But I don't have the one you just showed or the one that you had previously on the screen.
These,
I
Justin,
see what
that's
you're
the
saying.
attachment from the board packet.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're titled exactly the same, attachment 5.
I'm looking at 7A in the board packet that is online, and we do have the wrong map shown in that, in its item.
7A and B,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I'm like, this is what I saw yesterday, so I was like,
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I
My
just-
apologies. We had a last-minute technical issue, so we had to reload the maps. We'll make sure that is corrected. The maps in your packet are correct.
Okay, so.
There, any issues, Director?
Not-
Or
no
just trying
issues
to
at-
clarify the paperwork that you have
Well, yeah,
sent to
mostly
you?
because I like to know, like, and where the projects are, and so I'm looking at it, I was like, those are not the streets I've been looking at, so.
Okay. But for voting purposes, are you comfortable with where the
Absolute-
pipeline is
I
located?
will make a
Okay.
motion to
I just want to make sure we're voting on the right thing here, and you're not,
Right.
you're comfortable.
I guess, I will make a motion, but is this the correct map, or are these the correct maps?
The maps in your board agenda packet
The
that are
red ones are right,
printed.
correct.
They're right, so,
On the
Attachment
screen is
4?
correct,
The one
too.
on the screen is correct.
so they're all correct, they're just not all in the packet, is that right?
Maybe there's a duplicate.
Yeah, this is a different map than is in
Yeah,
my
the one,
packet.
that's what we're trying to, we have totally,
We have completely
different.
different
The
maps.
one on
Yeah.
your screen that's up right now is correct?
Okay,
Yes. The one,
Okay.
the extraneous one in the package is
There's
actually
two.
Woodcrest pipeline replacement.
No, let's not do that again.
Okay,
oh, I mean, that's a good, yeah,
yeah.
it's the
I
one.
apologize.
It's just, it's a production error.
No worries, like I said, and
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I'm
No,
looking
you're-
at these,
You're absolutely right.
I try to keep, like what streets, like where in my district is
Yeah.
this going to be? And so I saw this map and I'm like, nope, that's not this.
It was just a quiz, Director. We're seeing if you're paying attention, and you passed.
You
Pass with
Congratulations.
flying colors.
We-
Nice.
We'll.
It
we'll-
still works, guys.
We always have an after-action meeting after the board, so I'll look at that and see what happened. But
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of a production snafu. Sorry about that.
No worries. But I do make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I will second.
Okay, first I'm going to call for public comment, if there was any.
I have no request to speak.
And would anyone on the line, you mentioned they were all on Zoom, right?
Correct.
Would anyone on the line like to speak to this item? I think it was Mr. King, Mr. Maji, or Mr. Liskow. Okay, it doesn't sound like it.
I heard someone talking.
Are they trying to come on?
Mr. King did, it looks like he's
I was
trying
just
to
saying,
come on.
no comment, but we appreciate the opportunity and look forward to a successful project.
On time and under budget, right?
Yes.
I think I heard Sonia even say that.
Thank you.
That was great. Okay, so we did public comment. We have a motion and a second. May we have the vote, please? Roll call vote.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstead.
Aye.
Director Risby.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
And thank you for being on the line today for our meeting. It's much appreciated. Okay, we'll move on to item 7C. Mr. Miller?
All
did
right,
you-
the ComGov meeting, we went over our ledge platform. Mr. Hadley is here this morning to make a presentation to the board on our 2025 legislative priorities. Michael?
I'm back at it. Good morning, Director or President Roden and members of the board. My name is Michael Hadley, and I have the pleasure of serving as your Government Relations Officer here at Western Water. I'm here today to present to you our 2025 Legislative Platform and Priorities documents, which, if you're at ComGov, you'll be very familiar with, but so I'll breeze through this pretty quickly. An overview of the presentation, we'll talk about the purpose and overview of the platform and priorities, our process for legislative engagement, and our 2025 top legislative priorities. So the purpose of the platform and the priorities. So there's differences between the platform and the priorities. The platform itself is the foundation for our legislative program and allows staff to provide timely insight on state and federal legislative issues, and is transparently provided to customers information on our legislative program and our activities. So it essentially sets up the process for how we develop our priorities as well, which our priorities provide clear direction to staff on annual legislative priorities, gives authority to recommend and take legislative positions on behalf of Western, and incorporates a lot of things, including last legislative session, the associations and what they're up to this year, our advocates in Sacramento and DC, and of course, some of our agencies in the region as far as what things we should think about when moving into the next year. Our overview of the platform priorities, it's written in plain language, but offers detailed description of our legislative platform. It provides clear direction to staff under high-level legislative priorities as a basis for taking legislative action, which is important for us because we need to be able to, on a dime, sometimes switch and pivot and take positions on bills, and don't have time to come back to the board every single time we need a position on a bill. Of course, the legislative priorities are supporting documents to the platform, and they outline specifically what Western can support or oppose with the permission of the board ahead of time. So our process for legislative engagement, our general manager approves all letters, including coalition letters. So you'll see his name on the signature line when it comes to both our own letters and coalition letters. Controversial issues or issues not laid out clearly in our platform or priorities will be brought to the Community and Government Affairs Committee for direction. The legislative platform receives an annual review with updates only as needed, but our priorities are updated on an annual basis because things change year to year. But for our 2025 top legislative priorities, as you can imagine, setting long-term water supply targets and holding California accountable to meeting those targets is our #1 priority, especially on the state side. In general, when it comes to water infrastructure funding and permit streamlining and modernization, we believe that's a strong priority to have when it comes to building out our statewide infrastructure and resiliency. PFAS, of course, is another level, which again, these are just general, if I had to boil down between our federal and state priorities into one document of 5 priorities, this is what they kind of mold into. PFAS, whether it's developing new regulations, new legislation related to PFAS, those types of measures. Solutions for March Air Reserve Base. So this is, we're going to be working collaboratively with Eastern and many of our congressional offices and possibly state offices to develop some solutions on some groundwater and groundwater quality things going on over there. And then water affordability is going to be a big topic of discussion this year in the legislature with the California Municipal Utilities Association sponsoring legislation to get ahead of the curve and put forward the water industry's proposal for a statewide low-income water assistance program. With that, before I turn over to questions, I just want to let the board know that in our effort to gather support and insight for our own legislative priorities, we were able to work with Metropolitan Water District on their legislative priorities, and they successfully added a priority directly related to what was last year's SB 366. We were very excited to have that in their legislative priorities, and just goes to show that we are collaborative with our regional agencies and really do work together when it comes to prioritizing what we see in the future for the 2025 legislative session. So with that, this is a very timely issue. We are planning on having our first Sacramento visits on February 3rd. Very excited to have that, do some meet and greets and talk about those priorities, as well as maybe dispelling some early myths related to wildfires, because as you can imagine, we're expecting to see some wildfire legislation this year. So TBD on what that's going to be. But upon approval of the legislative platform and priorities, we also have some documents printed out for you related to kind of like a cheat sheet for what our legislative priorities are, both state and federal. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board at this point?
No.
No? Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. I just wanted to make a quick comment. This document, to me, is priceless. It reminds me of that credit card commercial where they flash the things and they
awesome.
say the value, and then the last thing is like, family, and it says it's priceless. The valuation and consideration that goes into a document like this is incredible, and I know it's very time-consuming, and I just feel so fortunate that Western, as an agency, is able to put together something like this. I mean, this is, a document that even other water agencies could possibly utilize, for what they feel some of their
Sure.
priorities are. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that goes into this each and every year and updating it, and, yeah, it's a great
Absolutely.
document.
I know it's not the most thrilling presentation in the world, but it's a really important document that
I don't know,
does.
I'm kind of a.
No, no,
Michael, that was a
I'm
great
thrilled.
presentation.
Yeah.
We're excited.
Tears were shed, laughs were had. I get
It
it.
was.
Is it
I-
a receive and file, or do we have to make a
It's
motion?
We do
a,
have to make a
let's
motion
see,
regardless.
I think we
This
have to.
requires a vote.
Okay.
We brought it to Ledge Committee for discussion. We're certainly open to more discussion here.
Yeah.
If any of the directors have anything they would like to talk about or add, that's why we're bringing it forward, but
I'd
it's
like
more
to
of
make a
a
motion to
living
approve.
document. And as Michael said, this gives us the ability to speak on behalf of the board and the agency when things pop up that are in alignment with this. But there are things that are going to come up that are not necessarily in alignment with this, and I'll make a judgment call as to how to handle that. But I like having the board's support before we make comments. So typically, I'd bring that back to ComGov, or maybe even the board if it's very controversial. And, we did this before on Delta Conveyance or some other big issues where it's a statewide issue. And I think affordability, as Michael said, is certainly being teed up as the topic of the year. I think that might get run over by fire emergency response issues. They'll both be big, and so something may come out of left field that is not part of the policy principles. And,
Yep.
I'll come back and talk to ComGov. But it's a living document. It's kind of a receive
I'll make a
and file.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more, discussion, I'm sorry.
sorry.
Director Denstedt had a comment.
Yeah, I do have a comment. So, spoiler alert, one of the things that was discussed at the WRCOG strategies session that we had, I'm not even sure, my calendar's a blur right now.
January
Whenever
10th.
that was.
Recently,
Very recently, was to take more of a legislative priorities and make more sense and more purposeful letters in support of legislation, and to make that be known that WRCOG is getting back into the fold. It was something that was done years ago to be able to push stuff, and when our presence went up to Sacramento, it was known. And so I would love for this to be shared with WRCOG so that they have this, to know what it is that our platform is, what our priorities are, what we're trying to shoot for, so that that can be a topic of discussion, and then we can bring it forward, because that's really a place that they want to land again. And I was happy to hear that, so, at the strategic planning session, so.
That's great. Bonnie has already reached out to Eastern and I at the end of last week to get some influence on their
There it
water
is. Okay.
legislative priorities. I don't imagine they're going to incorporate our entire document into theirs, but we'll give them some big
Yeah.
ones, the top priorities, I think.
No,
would
for
be-
sure,
would be
so
perfect.
it'd be great to share all that documentation with them, so.
Great.
Okay, those are my
All right.
comments, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call for the vote, please.
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Rizvi,
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we will move on to item D, confirm Western Municipal Water District's representatives to outside organizations, receive and file board director committee appointments. Mr. Miller? I think
Okay, let me,
You have a little report on that.
Yeah, let me just highlight a couple of changes that I suggest, recommend.
What did I do? Okay, that's,
First of all, on the matrix, we had a Murrieta board committee meeting, which hasn't happened in a really, really long time. So I suggest we just scratch that off of the matrix and just treat that as an ad hoc meeting when it comes up, if it comes up. Same for High Grove Municipal Advisory Council and the Corona Norco Ad Hoc Committee. They just don't happen. If they happen, we'll contact the board and get a representative to be there, but I don't think that it's something that needs to be on the committee assignments.
I would just add that for the High Grove MAC, that's actually, we don't serve them.
oh,
They're primarily, there are a few that are RPU and the rest are West Highland, I believe.
okay.
The CDA Advisory Committee, we added, we shouldn't have added that. It doesn't really exist. I think it was a typo with the Chino Basin Water Master, so that's going to come off. Yesterday, there was a slight change at SAPA. So yesterday, Director Gardner thought it was a good idea to change the PA24 committee and voted in favor of it. Every once in a while, we have a conflict where it's at the same time as our board meetings, and the directors and myself are all choosing between our own committee meetings or PA24. Other agencies are having the same challenge, so the SAPA Commission is allowing an additional alternate, which I think is a really good idea. I'd like to appoint Derek Kawai to serve on that role because that's the brine line subcommittee, and it gets really very technical. And so I think it's really good to have Derek there to support and cover for us if a board member can't represent. No change to the board member representations, it's just adding one more representative. And then at RCRA, I've been the backup to the directors, and kind of the way it works is Director Rizvi is the primary, Director Roten's the alternate. If neither one of them can show, then I step in. I still attend, but Director Rizvi actually shows up every time, so I have nothing to do, but I go to all these meetings, and my time commitments are just getting too great. So Paul Rug sits and pays attention to all these meetings, and so I'd like to exchange Paul Rug for myself on that. I'll still be on the exec committee, because that more fundamental issues come to that, and I can play more of a role. Our board members have the board meetings covered. I don't need to be there, I don't think, for that. So I'm recommending that change. Oh, and the other thing, minor thing, but you see the last staff column on there. Traditionally, it was just me, so, but now we've kind of changed the title to staff because we've got several other staff members on there. So those are the changes that I would recommend, and as always, the board is free to discuss and make changes as they see fit. So I'm finished with my changes. President Roten.
I just had a question. So the SAPA Project Agreement 22 for you as staff member, you said that one was still okay?
That one's still okay. It doesn't meet very often. It is to spend the Prop 84 money that SAPA has on conservation measures. And so it's really winding down. It needs to sunset. So we're not meeting, all that money is, I think, committed. I don't know. Ryan's not here. So,
I'm here.
thank you.
Oh, hey.
Hi, guys. Good morning. I apologize for not being there. A little under the weather. What Craig said, President Roten is correct. PA 22 is winding down. It's part of that Proposition 84 funding. So within the next 6 months to 9 months, it'll be done.
There, I don't believe there's any electeds that represent. I think it's
That's
all-
correct.
It's all staff,
It's staff.
because it's so technical, so.
Okay.
It's fun.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure in case you were wanting to assign it to someone
Yeah.
else. Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay, well, thank you for that overview of the matrix. Do we have any public comment on that? And I will take questions.
We have no public comment.
Okay, and questions from the board? Yes. Director Denstead.
So, I mean, yes, I agree that the Marietta Committee hasn't met in a really long time. However, we've had a lot of changes with leadership down there and, you know, the executive team and stuff. So I want to make sure that we maintain a relationship. So we should at least be meeting with them once or twice a year just to touch base and have conversations. Because there is a huge amount of development that's coming our way. And we want to make sure that we keep all of those relationships flowing. So,
You can just wait for my general manager report.
oh, great. Okay. All right. Now, I mean, as long as we're all on the understanding of that, so we can, you know, because that's a city that we service directly. We provide water service to City Hall directly, so it's something that we should maintain for sure, in some capacity, so.
Yep.
All
Any
right.
other?
I just have a question regarding the staff, and excuse me for not knowing this. Just for whenever decisions need to be made, and it is a staff member, are they able to vote?
If they're on the matrix.
Okay.
Or if they're, well, actually with SAPA, Tammy, we have to send SAPA a resolution of
That is
who our representatives are, and then they're able to vote, and we do that next month.
Yes,
Okay.
that
And-
is
and-
So it's
correct.
like, it's a separate action.
Okay.
And that gives them the authority to
Same with
represent and
RCRA?
speak for us.
Correct, same for RCRA. So we will be doing resolutions for SAPA and RCRA at the first board meeting in February, and those resolutions will be sent to the respective
Yeah,
organizations.
thank you, Tammy.
Good to know.
And just to note, on the Chino Basin Advisory, we do not have a voting role there,
Okay.
so.
I don't
Yeah,
know
and,
if I'm just completely
Tim-
missing it.
Tim-
Oh, I see now.
Tim added also that, you know, the PA, even though we're sitting on the PA committee, it still goes to the commission.
Sure.
So the commission ends up being the ultimate vote.
Got it.
The final vote on it.
Okay.
So it's a recommendation, I believe, to the board, or the commission, and then the commission is the final authority.
Interesting. All right, move to approve.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I covered all the bases, right? Public comment, discussion. I need a little checkbox over here.
That's such a good
Okay,
idea.
we'll call for the vote to confirm the matrix chart with all these changes and updates.
Thank you. Director Gardner. Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And item 7E, appoint Western Municipal Water District's representative to the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Water District. Mr. Miller.
So we're required to make a separate vote on metropolitan representation. And so this is our opportunity to do that. Director Denstead has been serving 3 years?
I know since I've been here.
It's been.
Since July 2021,
Wow,
4 years.
4 years now. So,
officially July.
so I don't have a report, other than the board needs to make an appointment.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the board? No, and any public comment?
We have none.
Okay,
I would move that we appoint Director Denstedt to continue being the Met Rep.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Director Rizvi is second. Okay, whenever you're ready for the vote.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you. We will, hey, I'd say congratulations, but I'm not sure that congratulations are in order.
Yeah. No, things have been very active up at Met, so Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have an interesting little report to give here in a little bit.
Okay. And we will move into reports. General Counsel, do we have a report today?
I do not, thank you.
All right, thank you. And General Manager and staff reports.
All right, we've got quite a bit today. Obviously, the emergency response and firefighting has been top of mind. There's all sorts of conversations. I've been called a lot. I think I want to kind of keep talking about this with the board because I want us to show some leadership as an agency. And, I've heard other boards that have made comments about, we really got to get to the bottom with what happened with the lack of water. And, I've talked about it at the last board meeting, I'm going to talk about it again now. Remember, our municipal firefighting system that is put in per the requirements of the fire agencies is meant to put out residential fires,
Right.
not wildland fires. And so I feel like I'm kind of beating the drum a little bit, but and it came up at SAPA yesterday. We got to figure out what the heck went wrong. And I'm answering this question with personal friends and with other water agencies. The chamber called, Marietta Fire Captain called me. And so, it's gonna come your way. And so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I get this, well, don't you test your fire hydrants? How are they failing? And remember, a fire hydrant is the same as a hose bib at your house or the shower. It's just an off and an on thing. You turn it on, water from the water system, the same water system that's feeding your shower and your house and your landscape feeds the fire hydrant. It's not a special magical device that creates water that needs to be investigated. All it is a valve. What happens is the massive amount of fire hydrants that are turned on overwhelms the system. It's not designed for that. It's not meant to do that. And it quickly.
I just want to bring it back to exactly what you said. It's the same thing in your house, right? If everyone decides to turn on everything, the pressure's going to go down.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
Your kids scream at you if they all run the shower at the same
Oh,
time,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your
Or
hair
the
dryer.
dishwasher's on.
Every
Yeah.
system works like this.
But I kind of think this is logical, but other people don't understand water at all. And so we have to have patience, but we have to keep reminding them. Now, I had this conversation this week. Well, you should improve the system where the fires are going to be.
Oh.
Okay, I love that. I agree with that 150%. Where's it going to be? Because I can almost guarantee you that had you gone back as a Monday morning quarterback and said they should have done more in Pacific Palisades, that would not have been very high on the list for a devastating wildfire. So I don't know that would have been changed or improved. So I don't want to sound defensive. I mean, I feel horribly for the people that this has happened to. It's a natural disaster. It's like a hurricane or an earthquake, and Chief Malloy was very good about this in our conversations. He called me, said, I want to make sure we're on the same page. I'm going to get lots of questions about the water system. Here's my impression of the water system. He was dead on exactly how it operates. We get fire flow requirements for every single development, and we force the developer or we build the system to those fire flow requirements from the firefighting authority. So unless we want to make a radical change from that concept, that's how all of the firefighting systems are built, and they'll continue to be built. As Michael pointed out, affordability is going to be an enormous issue, I think, in the legislature this year. So this will be really interesting to see how this plays out in the legislature. I think you're going to have legislation that's run that says, we got to build more reservoirs and have more fire flow. And then you're going to have a bill right behind it that says, people cannot afford their water bills, you got to do something. But someone has to pay for the upsizing of a water system if that's where the legislation is going to go, because our customers couldn't afford to change all of our existing system from 8-inch or 12-inch lines in the streets to 24-inch lines in the street that could handle that flow. And we'd have to build all kinds of reservoirs to carry enough water and redundant pump stations. And remember, the electrical lines go down before the pump stations go down, so someone's got to build underground all the electrical too. It's an enormous cost shift. So there's going to be an amazing amount of conversation about it. I think where I am and where other water districts are is we need to help lead this conversation. We need to learn lessons from what happened. If there are things that were deficient in a water system at one of these fires, we need to address that, make sure we don't have the same problem here. But where Captain Malloy went very quickly was the real answer is in defending our structures ourselves, making sure that we're doing the right vegetation control. There should be modifications to building standards so that your house is built and commercial buildings are built that are more resistant to embers blowing into the building and catching it on fire. We need to have better fuel modification zones around buildings. Defensible space. We probably, as a planning commission, this isn't us, it's the cities and the counties, probably need to think a little bit more about where have historic fires burned, and are we putting a neighborhood in the middle of, right in the path of where we've seen 10 fires in the last 3 decades blow right through that area? Probably not a good idea. Maybe we should have zones that we don't build in anymore. But those aren't water district issues. And so we're here to help. And, the other thing that I'm thinking about, how do we message this? Because we will be on panels at conferences to talk about this. And one of the things that I'm really thinking about is look at the enormous amount of money that the state government, the federal government is going to spend recovering from these 2 fires. I mean, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. Is there some way that we could spend that money in defending against it happening again instead of reacting? You could put, I don't know what the numbers would be, a couple of $1 billion into building reservoirs at the right spots, buying more helicopters that are going to fight this, more defensive space. That money could be spent in better ways. I think that's where the debate needs to go. And so, we'll try and be a thought leader on that. I think this is where Western can maybe show some leadership statewide on water issues with our partners in the water industry. I was following Metropolitan's press releases. I was also following some other agencies' press releases where they're like, hey, we're good. I don't know what's wrong with everyone else. I don't think we want to be there. We want to be a joint force in the water industry, and we want to all come up together. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a rough ride for a little while. I don't want to come off defensive as a water industry, but we have to be very realistic as a water industry. And frankly, there are things we can do better. And there's better collaboration that we can have with the firefighting authorities. So happy to talk about that, Director, if you have a comment.
I just have a comment that I agree with, the latter part of, I agree with all of it, but the latter part where you said, this kind of becomes a lessons learned, but also an opportunity to educate. I've gotten the same calls, a ton of calls. I've been asked, who are the 2 billionaires that own all the water in California? So I've been asked a ton of questions, all stemming from, I don't know them, but personally, but apparently there's just 2 people that own all the water in California. But I think this is an opportunity to educate and become leaders in educating people on water. It's not a sexy topic until these things happen, right? And so I don't know how that happens, but I think the next thing that's going to happen is with our new health and health secretary, right, taking fluoride out of water. That's also an education topic that I think is important, and I get it all the time. People ask me all the time. So I think there is opportunity for us to be leaders in teaching people what water really is and how it really gets to either a hydrant or your faucet. And I know we've taken, here locally that approach very, very well. I commend our communications team, but, I think it does give us that opportunity to become education leaders.
Yeah. Sarah and her team has been putting together talking points. We've been collaborating on this, so we will get the board talking points. Obviously, we've been a leader on developing water supply. So you kind of hear that coming out of the federal side. Sure. It becomes political, right? Well, you need more water supply. We've been talking about water supply for years now with our bill. So that's water supply. Firefighting is a different issue. It wasn't a statewide water supply issue. It's an investment in local system reservoirs, which is a lot different. But we need to be educators on that difference because even people in the industry don't understand it very well. So we'll get you the information. Sarah and her team's been really working on this and paying attention. And I actually was contacted yesterday by another general manager from Northern California who's developing an op-ed that he's going to try and get run statewide, it kind of explaining all this. And so I think that's really healthy, and there'll be a lot of discussion. But for sure, it's going to fall in your lap as directors. And so I want you to make sure you're comfortable and educated with the talking points.
Are we still planning on trying to do this as a topic at Water Task Force?
We have not scheduled that yet, but
Okay.
we are talking about that.
Okay.
And I think, we'll be pushing it at CMUA also.
Right.
For their next conference. I would guess Urban Water will also be looking at a topic about this. So I think all the water conferences will be gravitating
For
a
sure,
session
for
towards
sure.
this.
But it'd be great at Water Task Force, since we have such great attendance at that, to be able to even get maybe Chief Malone to come and.
Yeah, we'll-
one of our fires
We'll figure
guys
out
to
a
come
panel.
and have a conversation and.
I've already spoken to WRCOG about that, and we already agreed that would be a great next topic.
Perfect.
So we'll work on it.
Two
Okay.
things,
So-
just real quickly on this. Operationally, water utilities can, when there is a forecast of extreme fire danger, can make sure that the tanks that serve those areas are full. I suspect we already do that.
Yeah, that's
But, I mean,
Mr.
yeah,
Fike over
yeah.
there. I get phone calls very quickly when a fire starts somewhere that we've topped off the tanks and we're ready to
Yeah,
assist.
it's a smart thing to do. I assumed that we did it. I'm not sure everybody does it. There are some tanks that are operated for financial reasons. They fill off-peak times when electricity is less expensive. There could be times where you want to proactively spend a little extra money to make sure you've got as much water available as possible. Possibly pre-positioning backup generation. I mean, there may be instances where that makes sense, and it's another one where I'm sure we are doing that. But I think it's something that if we explain better to the public, here are steps that your water utilities can take that can make things less bad.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a discussion of the public safety power shutoff
Oh, let's hope
system.
so.
I believe that is coming.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
And I think it may be entirely revamped. And I personally, I think maybe it should. But that's not entirely our issue, but it is coming, I'm pretty sure.
You're absolutely right. Our team did an amazing job in advance of the PSPSs to make sure that our tanks were topped off. We had all of our rolling generator stock pre-positioned. They were out there. They were communicating 24/7 throughout the power safety public shutoff. we will be coming back with an after action, having a conversation about lessons learned, and probably having a couple of requests of the board at a later date for equipment and things like
I
that. So,
suspect the board would be supportive of some
This
additional
is,
support if it's needed.
again, this will be on the agenda for Aqua, I'm sure,
Oh,
and other
everybody.
water conferences,
Everybody.
because Joe and I have already been talking about this, is, it starts rolling into AQMD limitations of operating portable generators and air emissions, and we're like handcuffed on both sides. Things have to change.
As soon
You
as
know,
they
we-
regulate fire emissions.
It's kind of the crazy thing, right? You got this enormous wildfire burning, and they're worried about our little portable generator kicking out some diesel
Or
exhaust.
the fire engine from out of state.
Yeah, so we gotta be a little smarter, but these are all gonna be topics that are gonna be front and center. And I think your comment about pre-rolling stock to get out there and get ready, I mean, the PSPSs force us to do that. Now, we could play a guessing game of, do we wanna move it to where we think the fire might happen instead? But the tank issue, I think operationally, we feel like we're very well prepared because no one operates their tanks full 100% of the time. You have to move your tanks and
Right.
rotate your tanks. But what we do is, the minute we hear about a fire, all focus turns into fill those tanks right now as fast as we can before something bad happens, and we lose capacity to do that. And I think predominantly, fire systems are operated like that throughout the state.
Yeah.
But, you move a portable generator to a pump station, and then the fire overwhelms it, and the generator burns down. That's what happens, and
Yep.
we can't send our staff out. The fire department won't let our staff in there, it's not safe. So that's the reality of fires,
Yep.
wildfires. So, anyway, other comments before I move on to a few other announcements?
I just had a quick one. I think, we've talked over time about telling our story, the water story, but our story as an agency. And I think that this shows the importance of residential local users knowing where their water is coming from and just the basics of how it works. So that, like, initially, obviously, when these fire hydrants weren't producing any water, people were just like thinking they were broken. And I don't know, maybe in the case of some of them, they were, and it was too early to tell any of that. But it sounds like it was just because they were all being called upon at almost the same time. And then there was the, Monday morning quarterbacking about that reservoir being empty. And folks they don't know the reasons behind, and I'm not saying it should or shouldn't have been empty, because I don't know the details, but they don't know, even in where they're living, where the reservoirs are for their particular water agency. And so I think stressing, people are, this is gonna bring to light an awareness, whereas we've always just kind of taken water for granted when we turn on the faucet. Now it's kind of like, I think people are gonna start wondering, well, wait, where does my water come from? Well, what happens if the power goes out? And they'll start to, some of those things will start to register. So a lot of good can come out of what was a horrible, and I agree, natural disaster. I mean, you couldn't fight this. It was like to me, it was like an earthquake. You can't stop the earth shaking. And as hard as they worked, they couldn't get those fires out right away. Thankfully, by my house, in the last week and a half, they've gotten 2 of them out right away. But
There was
yeah,
one yesterday.
last night, it was 40 acres, and it's usually in the same place by the animal shelter in the river bottom.
And we're at a place, like yesterday, my daughter texted me freaking out. She's like, there's a fire nearby. I was like, it's just at the river bottom. And I'm like, man, I have the same attitude that I have for earthquakes with fires now, but it is going to become it's been a reality, but now it's going to just be something we're dealing with and living with. And I do feel like Western has been ahead of the conversation for a long time. Same with PSPS. I've talked to some directors from Harupa Community Services District, and they've been dealing with the shutoffs. And I'm like, man, I feel like Western handled this years ago. So I feel like we're in a good position, but can be I'm sure there's room for growth.
it's a really good reminder, a painful, not a good reminder, it's very painful. There's loss of life, it's very dramatic for all those residents and all the businesses. My sister went through this in Santa Rosa, and so, I hear these conversations about, well, LADWP should have done a better job. In Santa Rosa, my sister's entire neighborhood burned down all at once, and there was not one firefighter there. It wasn't the water system, it wasn't the fire hydrants ran out of water. There are not enough firefighters to do that. They had 13 fire trucks in Santa Rosa. They lost like 3,000 structures and I don't know, 150 lives or something. They have 13 fire trucks. How do you do that? But the reminder is, just like an earthquake, people have to be responsible for survival.
Yeah.
And you have to have your to-go bag, you have to have your important documents, and you have to get the heck out of the way. And that is the number one issue that needs to come out of this, is, the fire department's gonna do everything they can to save lives, then they're gonna do everything they can to put out structures, but there are only a few of them. And you gotta save yourself and your family, and, they're just things, if you lose them, as painful as it is. But I think there's going to be a real focus that this is natural disaster preparedness, and you have to be prepared. And hopefully, it all works out that it's not that bad, but you have to be ready to go, and it's your own personal responsibility to do that. And so I'm on my soapbox a little bit here, but I think just like Director's talking about, is people get very complacent because things go so well all the time. Things don't always go well. And whether it's an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado, or it's a crazy wildland fire, I was watching that when it broke out that day, and all of the aircraft were grounded, and you're like, this is gonna be really bad. The fire's gonna get a 2-day head start before anyone can do anything about it. So, okay. Can I move on with other things?
Yes.
Thanks for indulging. As you have heard, I got a, of course, update. California Water for All has been officially put in print. Senator Caballero submitted it as her priority bill, her first bill. It's in print, SB 72. And put that in your mind, SB 72. In alliance with Director Denstad's comments about Marietta, we did meet last week with the city manager, Justin Clifton. First, he's new, just met him. Assistant City Manager Kristen Crane is new, but I had met her before. She is a water person. It's very good to have her on board. And the Economic Development Manager, Scott Akajanian, who's very good, had been there for a long time. There continues to be developer issues that come up about Western's water system not built for their development. We all know development comes in and they want, a water system that was prepared for this development in some way. Marietta is growing like crazy. They're changing the way they're growing. They're growing at higher density and multifamily units. That is different than what our master plan planned for. We just did our master plan 2021? 2021? It's out of date for what they're approving. So we've got to go in and redo that. And it's a big effort to redo a master plan. And remember, out of the master plan is where we figure out how many reservoirs do we need? What backbone infrastructure do we need? How big of pipelines are going to go to which areas so we can meet fire flow requirements? So we communicated that all very clearly with the city staff. Was great. They understand that. They're willing to work with us. So we're going to have to get in there and really work quickly to redo a master plan to match the growth that's going on and make sure we have the water and the fire protection that Marietta is looking for as they grow. I mentioned that Marietta's fire chief, Bernie Malloy, called me during the fires and said, hey, let's just make sure we're in touch. I know I'm going to get lots of questions from the city council and others about fire protection and water systems, so let's talk. he fully understands how the water system works. There was no disagreements. We talked a lot about messaging, and he quickly focused on home improvements and, safe zones around houses. That's what he thinks is the most important thing. And, their ability to put aircraft in the air and their ability to grade, fire breaks. I talked to him about, what about heli hydrants? Should there be more heli hydrants located? And he said, not really, because when you have a helicopter, every pond or recycled water pond at WRF becomes a heli hydrant. He goes, when you can fly a helicopter, you're only 5 or 10 minutes away from anything. So he says, yeah, in certain areas they can help, but that's not the key. We need more firefighting equipment in a big way that's up in the air to do that. So we agreed to continue to collaborate on that in the future. So that was great. So build those lines of communications. We had our retail agency managers meeting last week. Great conversation, talked a lot about this and metropolitan issues, water supply issues. We talked about the bill. Something that the board's aware of is the state water conservation mandates. So we're talking to our other agencies about how do we comply, how do we implement. It's very complicated. Michelle's doing a great job trying to figure out how Western is going to comply. We have to think about that with our budget-based rate structure. What do we want to change? What do we want to modify? So we are having that conversation, but we shared that with all the other retail entities to make sure they understand the same thing we understand, and we're all under the same path. Everyone will do it their own way, but we need to make sure that we're in compliance with the state mandate. I met with Tom Moody, City of Corona Water and Power General Manager, so that was great. We're on the same page. Upcoming events. Our Water Leaders Cohort Follow the Drops Tour is this Friday. Michael's taking them around, showing them Sterling Pump Station and talking about our ability to move water around our system. State of the City of Riverside is Thursday night. Just want to make sure we do have a table. The 30th.
I was like, no.
30th.
Yeah, not-
30th,
not
Thursday the 30th.
Next week.
Next week. Okay.
Sorry.
It's not tomorrow, it's next week. Tomorrow's
Darn it.
Corona.
Don't do that.
It's
to
on
me.
your
I
calendar.
Darn
showed
it.
up.
A week from Thursday. Tuesday, the 28th, we're going to have our next Western Water Roundtable. So the directors are all invited. We'll be doing it in here. We've got a great plan for the event. We're going to have Shane Chapman from MWD, Assistant General Manager at MWD, is going to be the featured speaker. But we're really hoping to draw out the general managers from all the retail agencies to participate and share what they're doing. CMUA Capital Days are February 3rd and 4th. I'll be participating as a CMUA president. The Capital Day presentations for CMUA go in the morning. We'll have afternoon ledge visits that Michael is busy setting up with KP right now. CMUA board meeting is the following day, and then we'll have our next Water Solutions Summit up in Sacramento. This is what generated SB 72, where we pull general managers together from across the state to figure out what we should be doing. I guarantee you there'll be a discussion about fire flow. And then our first board rates workshop is going to be February 10th. So we're working hard to prepare for that. We have another meeting today to talk about that internally. We're finishing up the study as to what the rates are calculating out to be. And so we will be sharing that with the board on February 10th. That's it. Happy to answer questions. I have a few other things, but if you want questions about my report, happy to answer those.
Anybody?
All right. Let's get into, oh. Okay.
So, something's gonna have to get scheduled so I can get caught up.
Okay, we'll figure that out. Mallory O'Connor, where are you? Would you like to give the board an update on our grants program?
I sure would. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. President Roten, directors, and staff. I'm going to give you a brief update on the grant program to kick off 2025. It's been a little bit since we gave you an update on what we've been up to. So I first want to start out with our partnership with Capital Planning. Last year, members of the grant team were involved in the facility planning process. So what that allowed us to do was have an early and close look at which projects were going to be reviewed and approved in the CIFP. And that helps us search for grant opportunities to meet and support those projects. And so our focus for 2025 is to apply for grant opportunities that align with Western's overall priorities, current and future priorities. And another huge goal of ours, too, is to continue maintaining compliance with our grants because as compliance comes future opportunities. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to comply with all of our grants that we have ongoing. And through that, we've streamlined our grant application and agreement tracking and our deadlines and deliverables. And we'll be seeking a grant management software, which I'll talk about in a later slide. And our congressionally directed spending, so we've also over the last year have been focused on collaborating internally and with our federal advocates, the Ferguson Group, to engage with our representatives. And I know several of you went to DC last year to help with that effort as well. And we've been fortunate to secure congressionally directed spending for high impact projects. And what's really great about this funding is it's a little more flexible in terms of guidelines and timelines, which helps our staff be able to adapt to which projects can qualify for this. And I did want to mention that, with the start of the new administration, it remains unclear at this time if there's going to be any impacts to our federally executed grant agreements. But at this time, we don't anticipate any changes. We'll be sure to let you know if we hear of anything different. And our submitted applications, we have 4 applications that are waiting to hear, awaiting notification on, totaling just under $2.5 million. These projects include a new tank, a turnout facility in Rainbow, upgrading and modernizing that facility, and 2 turf replacement projects. We should receive notification on whether or not we receive this funding either by September or October of this year. So we're just waiting at this point. And our recent awards over the last 6 months or so have been, really fantastic. We've been really excited about what we've been able to secure. A few of the projects here that you'll see are the infrastructure for backflow upgrades. That was under the congressionally directed spending slide there. Design for Well 6 project. The data acquisition and mapping analysis, that's the asset mapping in Murrieta. All of the assets will be mapped there. And that's starting this week, I believe. A feasibility study for recharging recycled water and groundwater desalter expansion. A Murrieta water system optimization review, so a water management study looking at groundwater quality, water loss, several different factors. And SCADA Phase 2 implementation. And the one that you've probably heard the most about recently, which is the sewer force main outside of Marb, the $13 million OLDCC funding we received, which will cover about 70% of this project. The total award over the last 6 months or so, and helped very greatly by the Marb sewer force main project, is just over $15 million in grant funding. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to give you a brief update on the SARCUP grant funding as well. You there, Ryan?
Thanks, Mallory. Yep. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so I have the privilege of giving an update on SARCUP. I believe Director Denstad at the last EOWR meeting, you were looking for a status update. So what we've got in front of you is where we are to date, and it is still in draft form. As a reminder for the group, this is a large watershed-wide conjunctive use program, $55 million from Proposition 84, and Western was able to secure a little over 26 million of that 55. One thing to note that's a little unique about this grant program, you've got 5 projects in front of you. The state actually allows us to move the grant funding, which is column 2, in between all of these 5 projects. So when you ask good questions about how much are we getting for this project or that project, you hear a little hesitation from me because we have that flexibility, which is pretty unique and kind of special for this program. But if you'll bear with me, I'll walk through each of the 5 projects really quickly here. So Sterling Pump Station and La Sierra Pipeline, I think the board knows that was funded primarily through an SRF loan. And so there were limited eligible costs that we could attribute to it. But we got over $4 million allocated to that project, which is pretty impressive. Kudos to the grants team for running that down. Excuse me. Second project here is March Air Reserve Base intertie. This is a intertie that was just completed last year. It's on literally across the street on Cactus. It's a intertie with Eastern Municipal Water District, and the water that will come from them will help provide long-term water supplies for the base. The third one, Magnolia intertie. This is another intertie with RPU. This is our third intertie with them. Literally, the intertie is at Sterling Pump Station right down there at SAPA's headquarters. This will provide us additional water supply, but more importantly, flexibility on where we can actually move water for our retail customers and for our wholesale customers. If you recall, Sterling Pump Station allows us to move Chino to Salter, Arlington to Salter water, Metropolitan water, and with this Magnolia intertie, a fourth water supply from RPU, again, to our retail customers and wholesale customers. Non-potable well number 7, you heard a lot about this already this morning. You see there's kind of a placeholder there. We think the estimated cost is going to be about $7.1 million. Our goal and intent is to allocate all of the SARCUP grant funding that we can to fully cover it. Again, those eligible costs. So that's kind of a placeholder there. That's why there's a draft at the back of the slide there. And the 5th project, one of our partners, Ellesmere Valley Municipal Water District, they're drilling 2 new wells and wanted to participate in this conjunctive use program. So we had designated just over $3 million for their project. I think you may have heard over the years, they, like all of us, have encountered PFAS. So their project costs have quadrupled, to put it politely. So you'll see a big dollar figure there. $15.8 million is their latest and greatest estimate. The last thing I'll highlight here, you see a row there, funds to be redistributed. Again, with the flexibility under this grant, we're going to try and fully fund everything that we can. So we have 2.5 million ballpark that we can still redistribute or allocate to each of these 5 projects. And we'll be able to determine that once, probably 6 months from now, when final construction costs come in. July 31 of this year is the deadline to finish all 5 of the projects. And there'll be about 6 months of reporting after that. But that's kind of the update. Happy to answer any questions. More to come.
Any questions from the board?
And we're gonna meet the deadline.
Yeah, we're doing our best. Mallory, you have more?
Yeah, I have a couple more.
Okay, go.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, and then a couple more slides here. So single audit, it's a routine audit that comes up when you've expended more than $750,000 under your grant program. So a single audit is expected for this year because as our grant program grows, we're expending more, and we've crossed that, we met that trigger earlier this year. So we will start the process for the single audit in the next couple of weeks. We're expecting it. It's routine, and we're working with our finance department to ensure that they're ready to go with whatever we need. And the grants team will also be providing any additional information. The threshold does go up to 1 million, so not sure if we'll meet it next year, but we likely will, just in knowing that we're having a lot of grant programs and projects going on at once. So that's coming up. And then talking about the what I had mentioned in the first slide, our grant management software. So we really, as our grant project or program is growing, need a way to sustainably grow and integrate additional planning and strategic infrastructure. So we really need to ensure that we're complying as we meet our additional projects. And so we wanted to see if there was a grant management software available that can help us do that, meet our internal procedures, et cetera. And so we formed a steering committee and a core project team. The steering committee is really going to provide overall guidance for us as we seek this software. And the core project team, those are folks that have integrated other softwares into the district. So learning from them, they've been giving really good insight as to things you really need to look for when you're seeking additional software for the district. And so we've been collaborating with our other departments and other agencies that have grant management softwares. We called them and said, hey, can you give us a demo of how you use this software in your everyday? And some have said they used it quite a bit. Some have said they use certain components of it. So we're learning a lot. And of course, researching and doing product demonstrations. So our next step will be to continue on our request for proposal. We're finalizing that and hope to distribute that in the coming months. And with that, that is my update. Let me know if you have any questions.
Let me add, there's been a lot of executive orders that have come out very recently. We're paying attention to all that very closely. We called Mark Limbaugh just to double check because there was an executive order to stop paying out the grant money. So we asked about that, and Mark said, and this is what we had hoped, is that, the grants that we've been awarded are under contract. There may be some delays in getting the money out, and we'll see how that plays out, but we do have a contract. So we think we're in pretty good shape with that. Now, the applications that we have in, we'll see what happens. If there's going to be a big federal shift in grant funding, we may not be successful on those, but the applications are in. We'll see how that all plays out. But, I think we're in good shape on the already awarded contracts.
Okay.
Thank you, Mallory. Thank you.
Question? Thank you, Mallory.
All right, the last one, Josh Aguilera is here to give us our water supply update. We start this in January every year, and we'll give you kind of monthly updates on how it's going. So here's our first one of the year. Josh?
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, President Rodent, members of the board. Happy New Year. It's good to see everybody. I hope you're all doing well. As we step into the new year, it's a good opportunity to review our water resources, not just locally, but also statewide. So we'll jump right in with the hydrologic conditions. Starting in the Northern Sierra, we're about 127% of normal precipitation as of January 9th. It's about 119 as of just a few hours ago, which is 26 inches so far and a decent start for the Northern Sierra. But the average for the end of the year is about double that, at 53 for the year. So we're tracking so far. Although the Northern Sierra is above average, statewide precipitation is average overall due to the dry conditions in the southern part of the state. Average statewide precipitation for this time is about 10.7 inches, and the state is currently just over 10. When it comes to snowpack, in early January, the Northern Sierra was nearly 40% over average. However, precipitation and snow has been dry this month. And as of just a few days ago, the Northern Sierra snowpack is about 120% of normal. So it's gone down from the 140 to 120. Although the northern part of the state is about average, statewide snowpack is just over 80%. As we look at the upper Colorado River Basin, the snowpack is near average for this time of year, with levels around 95%. Despite the near average snowpack, forecasts predict that runoff into Lake Powell could be below average due to the dry soil conditions that are absorbing the snow melt in the months to come. So forecasters are currently predicting that runoff into the reservoir between April and July will likely be about 80% of average. Taking a look at the local watersheds, we all know that we've not seen rain in quite a bit of time and are experiencing near record dry conditions with only a few months remaining in the wettest part of the year. For context, the red line in the chart is the historical average for our local watersheds, which range between 5 and 7 inches by this time of the year. This year, however, our local watersheds have seen less than 1 inch of precipitation, almost combined. This has been a very dry start to the year, with short-term forecasting showing a lot of the same, unfortunately. Looking at the summary here, kind of at a glance, you'll see the blue information at the top row shows the State Water Project at above average conditions in terms of Northern Sierra precipitation and snowpack. It also shows Lake Oroville at about 70% capacity, which is actually over 120% of average, and the State Water Project share of San Luis Reservoir at 84% capacity. Now in Lake Oroville, the reservoir actually gained about 600,000 acre-feet in the months of November, December, so that was a fantastic gain there. Similarly, in San Luis Reservoir, it gained about 200,000 over that same period, so those 2 months have really helped. However, January has been very dry in both Northern and Southern California, so we haven't seen much precipitation or snowpack increase this month. On the Colorado River side, we haven't seen too much activity this month either. In terms of precipitation and snowpack, it's about average for now, and Lake Powell and Lake Mead are about 1/3 of capacity. Turning our focus to the State Water Project, here you'll see the historical allocations over the past decade. If we hone in on the last 5 years, we see a few 5% allocations in 2021 and 22, followed by 100% final allocation that started as 5% and was progressively increased until reaching 100%. Last year, we also started low at 10% and reached a final allocation of 40%. This year has started low as well, with a recent increase in the State Water Project allocation from 5 to 15%, reflecting the improved but cautious conditions. The increase to 15% was announced on December 23rd and reflects the current water supply forecast. Thanks in part to the November and December storms, as I mentioned, in Northern California. Key factors considered in the allocation include projected water demands for 2025, storage levels in the State Water Project facilities, future runoff estimates, regulatory and operational requirements, as well as other factors. The 15% allocation reflects current conditions and is subject to continued assessments of precipitation, snowpack, and storage levels. And now I'll look at our statewide major water reservoirs. Question?
Yes. Can they go down, or it's going to stay 15%, depending on
It has gone down in the
It has
past.
gone down, okay.
DWR in recent years, unfortunately, they had gone up and had to come back down. It's a very good question. After doing that, they've been feels a little more conservative in making their allocations so that they don't have to do that rewind.
Thanks.
If we look at the chart here on the right, you'll see the 17 major reservoirs. All but 2 of them are currently above average, including the local reservoir of Diamond Valley Lake at the very bottom there. You'll see some really high storage on Diamond Valley. Really glad to see that. As a whole, California's major reservoirs collectively hold about 26 million acre-feet of water, which is about 20% over the average of 22 million acre-feet. I just want to highlight Lake Shasta. Here you'll see some of the print screens that we've seen in the articles. It's been its best January in the last 15 years, according to the water levels. So that's a really good story. Lake Shasta is the state's largest reservoir, with a capacity of 4.5 million acre-feet, so quite a bit there. Multiple atmospheric rivers supplemented the Northern California Lake in late November, December, and contributed to a steep jump in the water levels that have the lake starting the year strong at 130% of average, or nearly 3.5 million acre-feet. When we take a look at metropolitan storage, the last decade shows an increasing trend in storage, as you see, and ending calendar year of 2024 with a record high storage of 3.8 million acre-feet of dry year storage. When looking at the local reservoir levels, we see Seven Oaks Dam and Prado Dam are very low levels due to record low precipitation, as I mentioned. Fortunately, both Lake Matthews and Diamond Valley Lake have regained levels and are at 87% and 97% of capacity, respectively. So it's nice to have that in our local watershed. On this slide, I'd like to start from the bottom up and look at the Colorado River supplies, which are about 950,000 acre feet, and then add on top of that the current 15% allocation, which is about 290,000 acre feet. Then that brings us to about 1.25 million acre feet of our current supply. The demand on Metropolitan that is currently estimated is at 1.51 million acre feet. So you'll see that supply and demand gap, as we call it. This is about 260,000 acre feet as of now, prior to utilizing any storage. Holding currently estimated demand on Metropolitan and the Colorado River supplies constant, and looking at the State Water Project allocation, we would need about a 30% allocation to balance the supplies and demands without having to pull from storage. It is early in the year, and a wide range of supply and demand outcomes remain possible, but should supplies remain low, Metropolitan has sufficient dry year storage available to satisfy the potential gap for this year. And then on our last slide here, just a few highlights. The State Water Project allocation has increased to 15%, and while Southern California remains dry, statewide precipitation is around average. January was notably dry across California. The reservoir storage statewide is about 120% of average. Metropolitan's dry year storage remains at record levels, ensuring that they can meet the potential supply gap if supplies remain low. There's more to come as we monitor precipitation and snowpack in the months ahead. Be happy to take any questions.
Anyone have any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
that. So cautiously optimistic.
Well, it's a good start.
Yeah.
It's a good start. January's been dry, but we still have February and March, so there's still plenty of time.
Did I ever tell you my dry January story?
No.
So this was a couple of years ago, someone said to me, yep, looking forward to dry January. It was one of the drought years. You put it on Facebook, and I'm like, what are you talking? We need rain in January. Yeah.
Different dry.
I hadn't heard that term before, so every time I hear it now, it's like a funny thing, so. Yeah.
Well, that completes the general manager report.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for all that. That was very good information. We'll move to the director report. Do we have a SAPA
We
report,
do.
Director Gardner?
SAPA met yesterday. As Mr. Miller mentioned, one of the actions was to add an alternate, an additional alternate at the discretion of member agencies to the PA 24 committee to avoid times when the committee needs to take an action and there's not a representative from one or more agencies. It's never been an issue of not having a quorum, but an agency may not have been represented when something important needed to be decided. They also approved a salary schedule update as required by CalPERS. They are in the process of doing a class and comp study. The list of comparable agencies that was put together by the consultant included too many large entities, much bigger than SAPA in terms of budget or staff or scope of responsibility, which created some angst. So yesterday they modified that. They took out 4 of the larger entities, including Eastern and IEUA, and they added 6 smaller ones, most of which most of us have never heard of. But it includes some JPAs, and I think it's going to come up with more comparable responsibilities and scope of work, which should be a better reflector of what an appropriate salary would be. So that's an update. It's going to cost about $5,000 to $6,000 more to the consultant to make those changes and interview the new people. Received a update on what's going on in Sacramento, remarkably like what Michael said, but with a little less detail. because Michael is better. And they approved an RFP for an investment management service. SALPA has never had an investment advisor consultant. It's always been handled in-house, and it's worked pretty well, but their CFO is retiring the end of this year. Chances of finding another CFO with the scope of certificates and ability to do things in the stock market that the current one has and is doing for SALPA is a challenge at best. And I think SALPA has grown to the point where it probably makes sense. They've got about $80 million in money that is invested. And that's enough that you ought to have an advising firm rather than an advising and decision-making staff member. So that was done. I did ask for a future agenda item at SALPA on taking a position on Senate Bill 72. That will be coming up. I think as much as we are able to encourage the agencies we work with to take a position sooner rather than later, I think that's probably a good thing. And SALPA's general counsel, it's a firm called Lagerlof. They're out of Pasadena. Their assigned attorney resigned, he retired December 31st, but nobody bothered to tell SALPA until a couple of weeks later when they said, yeah, your new attorney is this guy. A guy named Tom Bunn, who has been an attorney for 40 years. He does have some water experience. He's got some Brown Act experience and agency special district experience. But I thought that I was disappointed we didn't know that a retirement was coming, and that we weren't told, at least on the day that it happened. So a future agenda item for SALPA is going to be a discussion of whether to issue an RFP for legal services. Lagerlof can bid if they wish. BB&K can bid if they wish. Anybody can bid if they wish. So we'll see, but there may be new general counsel at SALPA coming. And that's it for SALPA.
Okay, thank you, Metropolitan Water Director Denstead.
Thank you. So things have been very active at Met, just to say the least. The fires that have affected the service area and member agencies, we ended up having a special board meeting on Saturday, January 11th at noon. We found out that I think the number was 34 staff members had been directly impacted by the fires and had been displaced. At least one director lost his home completely, and another director has been told that it is too toxic to return and it's not livable. So the interim general manager, Devin Apatier, has taken measures to try to assist staff with displacements, and has taken a number of measures to try to assist staff so that staff can continue their efforts to help member agencies, which was significant. Moving personnel around, moving facilities, equipment around, moving things around to assist Foothill and other agencies that were directly impacted was hugely appreciated by those member agencies. But it definitely took its toll on everybody. On Saturday, Shane Chapman was actually talking to us and giving us an update from the fire site with a mask on in the front seat of his truck as he was trying to be out there to try to help field staff with their efforts in moving water and equipment and supplies around. We did not go to the in-person meetings. We were asked to via Zoom because the air was so incredibly toxic down in the area of Los Angeles that we were asked to take the meetings and stay out of LA, which obviously was very easy to do since we were so practiced in our Zoom platform at this point, which was hugely helpful to staff because even staff were told to stay out of the building and not go down there because of the air quality. We conducted a lot of business to try to figure out, what our next steps were and what staff needed. So that was good. Other things that happened, Tim Smith from San Diego Water Authority was recognized for his years of service representing Water Authority's board, and Mel Katz was welcomed. He's the most past chair for San Diego Water Authority. So he will be joining us. And there were several different items that were on the consent calendar, but obviously a major portion of what we had going on was to focus on what staff needed and what we needed to do to assist other member agencies in doing those things. And then we had another special board meeting that was called yesterday. I was up in LA for. That involved several different items, and I guess reading the agenda is the best way that I could probably describe this to you. Item 6A was to review and report on 5 completed investigations involving the general manager, which includes allegations of equal opportunity employment policy and ethics policy violations by the general manager. Item 6B was to report on 2 claims previously involving the general manager and a pending investigation regarding one of the claims of anticipated litigation. The item 7A was to consider action regarding the general manager's paid administrative leave status. 7B was for the general manager performance evaluation, and 7C was for a public employee discipline, dismissal, and release. All of these items were heard in closed session. We met for approximately 8 hours yesterday in closed session. We had over 50 public comments that came in, and that took just over 2 hours to hear. The remainder of the time we were in closed session regarding all of these agenda items. At the conclusion of the day, the board meeting was continued to Thursday at 9 a.m., so I will be returning to Los Angeles to continue the meeting for the remainder of our discussion on this agenda. And that is all at this time that I am able to legally report. That concludes my reports for Metropolitan Water District. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Thank you. And next would be Chino Basin Water Master.
Tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And Chino DeSalter Authority, I did attend that meeting. Hang on, I had this all organized. Very routine meeting. We did swear in a new board member, which was Mayor Pro Tem Curtis Burton from Chino. And Tom O'Neill, our general manager, is going to be scheduling a tour of some of the DeSalter facilities and asked if anyone was interested, and I said yes. So we'll see. Hopefully I can tag along on that. And just regular consent item, we had 3 contracts or agreements that we awarded one for chemical room rehabilitation, project phase 2, one for environmental cleanup services and solids handling support, and one for on-call maintenance, rehabilitation, inspection, and urgent well and pump station repairs. And we accepted our annual comprehensive financial report. We had election of officers, which was really re-election of officers. We have Peter Rogers from Chino Hills and Greg Newton from Norco have been in the chair and vice chair positions. I think this will be the third time. They both agreed to remain in place, and the board is very happy with, Peter runs a really great meeting, and you can tell that he works really well with Tom, the general manager, so. And we had a representative, Mayor Pro Tem Burton was appointed to be the Aqua JPIA representative. And that concludes my report for CDA. So RCRA.
will meet next month. So
Okay.
will Sora.
Okay, great. And WRCOG?
WRCOG, we held a strategic planning session for a workshop here on Friday, January the 10th. I was very pleased to see the turnout that we had. We had several members turn out for that and welcomed city managers as well as public works directors that attended that. So I was very pleased. Director Risby was also present, so my alternate. And I think it was a very fruitful discussion. I think we hit a lot of topics. I think we really talked about what our avenues of focus were and what we wanted to see in the coming year and reflected on some of our past accomplishments. So I think it was very successful. I don't know if Director Risby has any additional comments that she'd like to add in her attendance and being part of that.
It was really great and a learning experience for me from where we were coming from water and how the cities are impacted and how their issues are. So it was really good, and I'm looking forward to serving, and attending those meetings moving forward.
Oh, yeah, so the strategy session, too, we took a different format and we set everybody up in groups and people got to kind of choose, but we all collectively kind of did this strategic thing together and questions were thrown at us and then those groups got to have conversations. So I really liked the format and how that all played out and how all the tables came up with very different discussion items. And so I think that was just really well played, and it was very positive for the experience. So a day well spent. Day well spent.
Good. All right, thank you. And how about Aqua?
So Aqua Region 9, we did have a board meeting and a tour that was Friday the 17th. And we discussed what the region really wants to do for programming. We talked about the up-and-coming conference that's going to happen here in May and how we're going to do that. We do not have slated for Region 9 to do a program presentation, so we're going to take the opportunity to try to do, I think, probably more of a networking with more of the Region 9 membership and try to focus on doing some of that. We did have heard our membership loud and clear, and they want more opportunities to try to figure out who's in Region 9, collaborate, build relationships, and so we really talked about that. And then obviously ag, the fires, a lot of different things have been topics of discussion and how we're going to move forward with what our program should look like for this year. So more to come on that, and we are going to try to set a schedule for the rest of the year and put that forward with some suggestions. So we're looking at those dates, and then we'll put that out to everybody.
Okay. Great, thank you so much. We can move to director's comments. Director Torres, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything except for sending out my condolences to the people who are still suffering through these wildfires and all the loss and devastation. But other than that, no comments.
Okay, Thank you. Director Rizvi?
Oh, thank you.
Actually, I'm sorry, Vice President
All
Rizvi.
right. Thank you. No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, Director Gardner?
Just really briefly, I would add to Director Torres' comment that Riverside Task Force 6, which is an urban search and rescue team under FEMA, composed mostly of City of Riverside firefighters, but a bunch of other people, including some civilians. There are several members with search dogs who are out looking for missing people. It's tough and unpleasant work, but it's really helpful to the survivors if they can return remains to families. So we've got local people who are directly involved in that.
Okay. Director Denstedt?
Yes, I have been invited by the March Air Base to attend a refueling mission with Base Command, and so I'll be heading out to go to Oklahoma and Tinker Air Base on that, and it's a wonderful opportunity, so I'm going to have a nice flight over to Oklahoma with these folks. It might be a great opportunity for me to hit any speaking points that we have in relationship to March and what we're trying to do with the water system over there, and do all that. So look into our general manager to maybe give me some highlights that we might want to have a little push on.
And you'll come back all refueled and refreshed.
There it is, refueled and
Refueled.
refreshed.
Oh, good one.
Yes, exactly, so,
Okay.
and
Right.
that's all I have.
Okay. And I do not have any comments today. I know you can't believe it, but I don't. Excuse me, any requests for future agenda items? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, for your reading pleasure, informational item, investment report. Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 5 at 9:30. And with that, we are adjourned at 11:17.